Alright guys, so before I even begin this video, I want to give a shout out to the Ducati owners group, the Ducati international groups on Facebook, and also the Ducati's parts group. Just the Ducati community in general. The Ducati community is a great community because they go above and beyond to help you. No matter how silly your question might be, you'll probably get one asshole out of 100 people who are willing to take the time to guide you in the right direction. Now, not all the answers are the proper answers, but they still take the time out of their day to help you out. And I want to give a big personal shout out to Joseph Raffils for messaging me personally and taking the time to look up parts for me to help me on my journey to get this bike fixed. And also, I want to give a shout out to Tony Vander Vigerland. Sorry if I completely butchered that, man, but you know who you are. I appreciate you guys for taking the time to message me and help me with this. I didn't do this by myself, guys, but I created this video in order to help you guys so you guys won't have to go through the problems that I have. So, good luck. Ducati community will always be there for you guys, and I wish you the best of luck on this repair. This video took me about 3 weeks to make. It took a very long time, so I hope you appreciate it. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, everyone between over here. Today I'm going to show you guys how to replace your flywheel assembly and your sprung clutch on your Ducati 999 or 749. Let's get right to it. So guys, I'm going to show you what's going on inside your motorcycle when you break your sprung clutch. This is, you know, I don't recommend doing this, but I'm just showing you guys. I'm doing this for demonstration purposes. All right, so this is what it looks like. It's just spinning. And this is what it'll look like when you have the clutch the right way. So the items that you're going to need are one sprung clutch assembly, one case remover tool, one screwdriver, a set of Allen nuts, one oil drain pan. Extra tools, we're going to need a 30mm socket, a star nut, as well as an air gun or breaker bar. If you have all of these, you're good to go. And the gloves are optional. So most likely on your motorcycle, you're going to have the fairings on. Take them off. So the first step in this project is to remove all the fluids from the motorcycle. So we're going to do that by going underneath the motorcycle and finding the oil drain plug. As soon as you locate it, which is right here. So while you're removing the engine oil, we can remove the coolant as well. So if you go to the side of your case right here, on your water pump, you're going to see a little drain plug. So just undo that. I like to be environmentally friendly and not have my fluids leaking all over the place. So you're going to see it's coming out slow. The reason I put the funnel there is because I'm actually going to be opening the cap to the radiator, and it's going to increase the flow of the coolant coming out. Your coolant cap is going to be located on the other side of the motorcycle, and you're going to see the coolant coming out just a little bit faster. Just drain the fluids of the motorcycle. Now it's time to remove the battery. So the next thing, we're going to remove the battery holder, and you're going to notice an Allen wrench here, an Allen nut here, and an Allen nut here. Now this Allen nut is different than these two Allen nuts. The next step is to undo the clamps on the coolant hoses because we're going to be removing the water pump housing. So once you have your radiator hoses off, we're going to need to remove the water pump cover. The reason being is because at the end of the job, we have to line up the water pump impeller in there with the rotator thing in there. And you're going to need to get this off. So just take it off. Trust me. You need to. So my water pump cover was stuck. So basically what I did, I just took a pole and I stuck it in here like this. And I just pried it off. And it came off just like that. The next step is to take off these Allen nuts.
Now these Allen nuts are very fragile, so you must be very careful with them because if you strip them, you're in deep crap. Okay, you won't be able to get this housing off. All right, so next we're going to remove our clutch assembly, our chain cover, and then our shifting mechanism here. And that is done just by removing a bolt right here and then sliding this forward. This we're going to let hang over on that side, and then this we're just going to put off to the side. And so now that you have all of that disassembled, now is one of the final steps is to take apart all the nuts. Now remember, put the nuts in a piece of cardboard. That way you know exactly where they all go. And take note, there is a nut underneath the shift assembly housing. So get to it, guys. So the next step is to take your cover remover tool and we're going to place it on here. What I'm doing, I'm taking 2 long bolts that came out of the casing. I'm sticking them in the thing like this just to space them out. I'm also going to stick a quarter in here so I don't damage the thing in there. And I'm just going to place it on like this. And this is going to, doing this so we can remove the cover. So the next step is to undo this bolt. So I would recommend using an air gun, but if you don't have an air gun, you can use a bolt or whatever. You're gonna stick it in this hole. I don't really recommend this, but I personally don't have an air gun, so you gotta do what you gotta do. So you put in this hole, then you take, then just lodge that up against that, and now we're gonna remove that bolt. Now we can just pull this forward, like so. Now when you take it out, there's going to be a little shim in here. The shim has a curve to it, as you can see. You want it to be facing this way. So the curve should go like that. Alright guys, these bolts shouldn't be that hard to get off, but if they are, just get a specialty tool.
Just a quick side note, if you're having difficulties and those star nuts seem like they're almost really impossible to get out and you're starting to strip them, go to your local automotive store and get yourself an impact driver set. It's pretty cheap. I don't know if I paid $20 or $14 for this, but it's pretty much a glorified screwdriver that you hit in the back with a hammer. Now, you just get yourself a little adapter to fit that star nut attachment, and then, yeah, you're good to go. Just I promise you, use this instead of stripping those nuts, because if you do, you're going to be in deep shit.
Or take it to somebody to get these bolts off. Because you don't want to strip these bolts. Because if you strip these bolts, you're gonna be regretting life very much. All right, voila. All the bolts are off. So now that the bolt's off, you can remove the flywheel from the back. Like so. And then with this part, it just comes off like that. Voila. It's as simple as that. All right, guys, so I'm going to show you how to put this all back correctly. If you do this wrong and have this in backwards, it's going to look like this. This is what it looks like. It's just spinning. So if you have everything put back correctly and you have this facing the right way, it's going to look like this. So I've shown you the importance of having this gear in correctly. So we got our flywheel here. This is our sprung clutch bearing. Now you have two sides. If you have this in the wrong way, it's going to be like this. The gear is going to turn freely to the right. That is the wrong way, okay? It should not be turning freely to the right. If you have, see, as I'm trying to, now when I spin it to the left, it catches. That's the wrong way. The proper way to have this in is like so. It's for this to be tight when it's spinning towards the right and loose towards the left. So now we have this complete. Before we put anything back together, it's time to clean up the mating surfaces before we put on the RTV. Now that we have all our surfaces cleaned off of any old RTV, that's including our water pump housing, there's a few little things to note before we put everything back together. Behind the pin bearing, there's gonna be a washer. It's gonna look like this. If that's not properly seated on the lip right here of this, it's gonna be on the back end that you're gonna see in just a second, it can possibly get damaged like this. So this is what it looks like if this is not sitting directly on the lip. And by the lip, see that lip right there? That bearing washer, it's called a thrust washer. It sits on that lip. But if it's not properly seated on that lip, you're gonna torque it in like that and it's gonna damage it. At which point, you're gonna have to buy another one, which is not an expensive part, but your time is expensive. So now that we have all our mating surfaces cleaned off, it's time to put everything back together. So we're gonna take this. Now I've put in a little bit of high temperature grease in there just so everything goes in smooth. Like so. Now you'll know you have everything in because you'll be able to spin this a little bit. And you'll notice that that is in line with this, that's in line with that. Now make sure everything is nice and clean. It's all about being clean. Cleanliness is key. Now the next step is to put on this little flange. One thing that you'll notice is the flange is concaved. You want to make sure to have the concave part inwards like this. You don't want to have it backwards like this because that's not the way it goes on. It goes on like this. So we'll just put that on like so. Now, before we add this bolt, I'm actually going to add a little bit of red Loctite onto this just to make sure that it's 100% secure because we don't want to be going 200 miles an hour and have this come off and just jump around in here and kill us or something crazy, you know? So add some red Loctite. I'm not going crazy with it. I'm just adding a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. We're not trying to glue it in. And then we'll just put that on. So now that we have this nut on, if you guys remember what we did in order to take it off in the beginning of the video, well, we're doing the same thing but in reverse. So rather than having this hole on this side, we're gonna have it on this side, and I'm taking my nut, I'm sticking it right in there.
And then so when we go to tighten this up, this will press up against this and lock it into place in order for us to put the pressure on this. Now, if you have an air gun, that's the best way to actually put this nut on. But seeing as I don't have an air gun, we got to do what we got to do. And to loosen this bolt, to get this out, you just have to turn this a little bit and it'll come right out. Simple as that. Now, when you don't want to snap this bolt off, so just don't go too crazy on tightening this down. You just has to be really snug, but not overly, nothing crazy. All right, guys. So now the next step before we put on the RTV, we're just gonna line this up and make this straight. Okay. So it's a little hard with one hand, but we want this like absolutely straight, okay? So when we put this on, everything goes on smoothly. Now it's time for the fun part. To put on the RTV, I'm using Ultra Gray. This was about $4, but you can get the Ducati official RTV, which will cost you your soul. Now that we have this on, you see that this impeller's all the way in. You see that this side is mated. Now we're just gonna use the bolts in order to secure it. So I'm gonna use the top bolt up here to get that in the line. All right, now I have all my bolts on. Next, we're gonna put on the housing for the water pump. I mean, pretty much it's everything I did in the beginning, but in reverse. Now, one thing to note, RTV takes a while to dry, so don't tighten the bolts all the way. It's gonna take about 24 hours to cure. So you're not gonna be able to ride your bike today, but you have the job done, and that's the biggest thing. So guys, like I said in the video, it would behoove you to let the RTV cure for 24 hours, but if you really needed the bike that day, if you let the RTV dry for maybe like 3 or 4 hours, you'd be in good shape. The way you can tell that the RTV is dried is when you start tightening down these bolts, the RTV, if it's not dry, it will squeeze from the pressure and you can touch it with your fingers and it'll still be wet. Now, before you put anything back together in the sense of the water pump housing and or the clutch lever, don't put that crap back. Leave that off until the RTV on here sets, because if you do that, you're not going to be able, by putting the water pump housing on and attaching these hoses, there's a bolt back here that you're not going to be able to get to. And also, God forbid that you forget that there's a bolt underneath the clutch lever mechanism over here. Because if you forget those two bolts, you're going to have oil leaking out of those two sides, okay? Mostly you have to worry about the bottom side here because that's where all the oil sits. But at high speeds, you're going to have oil splitting and splatting out of the sides. You're not going to see it because it's covered up and you're not, just trust me. Let the cover cure first, then add the water pump housing and the clutch lever after. Okay, so like I said, it's probably going to take you the next day. So just take your time, okay? It's a Ducati, not a Honda, not a Suzuki. It's freaking Ducati, and these measures should be followed with any bike, realistically. So one thing to note, as I'm putting these hoses back on, I'm putting high temperature grease on the inlet as well as the outside of the hose. That way it stays malleable for longer, and also it just slides right on, and it's just a form of protection. So there we go. And then we tighten this up, and then we just wipe down the outsides like this. That way when dirt and grime goes up there, it doesn't get stuck on the high temp grease, but it stays underneath the clamp. I'm also gonna put high temperature grease on the shifter outlet right here, and also some high temperature grease on the clutch mechanism outlet. That way everything is just nice and smooth. Don't put too much on this because there's 2 holes right here and you don't want to stuff those up. So just enough to get it nice and smooth. It'll just make the job easier to put in. While you're putting the hoses back on, make sure that this clutch cable goes behind this hose and not in front of it. To push this shifter mechanism in, I just use my toe and hold on to the frame and then just push in and then stick the bolts in there and then just tighten them as I go, just like so. Alright guys, so once you put your coolant in, your oil in, I like to place a little white piece of paper underneath the motorcycle to see if any of the RTV seals are leaking. And the moment of truth, let's see if she turns on. So now for the American models of the Ducati 999, we have an auto start. You might not have that in Europe, so when you see me step away from it, don't be alarmed. So let's see. If you like this video and this helped you out, please leave a like. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys later.
Ask myself what it's all for. You know the funny thing about it, I couldn't answer. No, I couldn't answer.